President Donald Trump, whom some of his supporters now affectionately, if controversially, refer to as King Trump, is currently facing a rising tide of skepticism from within his own borders and among high-ranking American officials. It is becoming increasingly apparent that the lightning-fast successes of previous strikes may have been more a matter of luck than sustainable strategy. Now, as Trump realizes he has pinned down in the Middle East far longer than anticipated, the shadow of doubt regarding the efficiency and competence of his administration's apparatus is growing darker. The invincibility narrative is cracking, replaced by the grim realization that a quick exit is no longer on the table. Washington's multi-week military campaign has not only failed to secure its stated objectives, but it has actively acted as a catalyst for further regional instability. The core of the problem lies in the very approach Trump prides himself on, a reliance on personal intuition and gut feeling over traditional, rigorous policy analysis and institutional expertise. In the complex arena of foreign affairs, especially when staring down a seasoned and ideological adversary like Iran, this seat-of-the-pants methodology is revealing its stark and dangerous limitations. After a grueling month of sustained airstrikes, the conflict in the Middle East has unmasked a harsh reality for the Trump administration. Throughout his storied career in both real estate and politics, Donald Trump has championed his hunch as his most potent weapon, believing his instincts to be sharper than any think tank's analytical brain. While this intuitive style granted him rapid-fire victories in short-term media cycles and business deals against an opponent like Iran, a nation defined by decades of endurance and sophisticated resistance, that hunch is starting to look like a self-constructed trap. Many veteran American political strategists are now beginning to characterize Iran as Donald Trump's Waterloo. Much like Napoleon Bonaparte saw the end of his empire on the muddy fields of Waterloo in 1815, this war is systematically dismantling the image of the master negotiator and the decisive commander that Trump has spent years meticulously crafting. Critics argue that the spectacle is over. The reality reveals a tragic play in which Trump failed to foresee the long-term consequences of his actions, lacked necessary caution, and is now sinking into a geopolitical swamp that could permanently erode America's status as the world's sole superpower. After 4 weeks of raining down thousands of units of high-tech munitions on Iranian targets, the goal of weakening the regime in Tehran or forcing a regime change remains a distant fantasy. Instead of kneeling in submission, Iran has deployed a brilliant survival through maximum pain strategy. By seizing and effectively closing the Strait of Hormuz, Tehran has delivered a kinetic blow to the global economy, transforming a vital energy artery into an incredibly potent tool of asymmetric leverage. Even Trump himself has had to privately admit his surprise at the enemy's resilience. This has left the White House in a state of visible confusion, evidenced by the constant extension of final ultimatums and the desperate back-channel signaling for negotiations, sure signs that the maximum pressure military strategy has run out of breath. This administrative paralysis has bled into America's relationships with its traditional allies. Secretary of State Marco Rubio recently struggled to hide his frustration, lashed out at NATO members for their perceived lack of support in the conflict. In an ironic twist of fate, the majority of European allies have flatly refused to allow the US to use their military bases or sovereign airspace for strikes against Iran. Spain has closed its skies to American military flights. And while the British Prime Minister eventually offered a lukewarm yes, it was strictly limited to defensive actions. Washington feels that NATO is playing a one-way game, reaping the benefits of the American security umbrella in Europe while turning their backs when the US needs logistical depth in the Middle East. Rubio's harsh rhetoric points to a profound fracture within the heart of the world's largest military alliance. The US is coming to the painful realization that without logistical hubs in Germany or staging bases in the UK and Spain, projecting power into the Persian Gulf is exponentially more expensive and significantly less effective. Trump's persistent demands for allies to hike defense spending to 5% of GDP had already strained ties. This refusal of support could lead to a total re-evaluation of the US role in NATO once this campaign inevitably grinds to a halt. Looking at the broader picture, the failure to quickly reopen the Strait of Hormuz through force is causing global oil and gas prices to skyrocket, creating a boomerang effect of inflation that hits American voters directly at the pump. Iran has proven that a nation doesn't need a superior air force to win, it only needs to make the price of war unbearable for the opponent. This is a terrifying moment for American global prestige, when a leader's intuition is decoupled from a long-term strategy and ally consensus. It leads to systemic failures that enemies are quick to exploit. This power play drama is creeping toward a finale that Trump likely never envisioned when he first ordered the fire and fury. The US now stands before two equally unappealing doors: either escalate the military conflict and risk a total regional conflagration, or sit at the negotiating table and accept terms that are far worse than those that existed before the first shot was fired. The truth is being stripped bare, and the spectre of a Waterloo in the sands is becoming a daily reality for the world's leading power. President Donald Trump is essentially falling into a strategic pitfall that his administration dug years ago. The original sin was likely the unilateral withdrawal from the 2015 nuclear deal, JCPOA, despite international monitors confirming Iran's full compliance at the time. This move didn't just shatter diplomatic trust, it turned every future diplomatic effort into a futile exercise. With trust evaporated and military strikes ongoing, Tehran has every reason to view any peace offer from Washington as a deceptive ploy. Even if the two sides meet now, Tehran will undoubtedly demand terms so extreme and uncompromising that they would have been unthinkable just a few years ago, all to compensate for the damage they have sustained. The deal-making mindset and intuition-based approach of the Trump administration are exposing fatal flaws when pitted against an adversary as steadfast and prepared for suffering as Iran. While the White House continues to issue press releases claiming they have neutralized the enemy's military capacity, the reality on the ground tells a much grimmer story. On March 27, 2026, Iran still possessed enough operational capacity to launch a coordinated wave of ballistic missiles and UAVs at Prince Sultan Air Base, wounding dozens of US troops and destroying the Sky Eye, the incredibly rare and expensive E-3 Sentry airwags. Losing an airborne command and control hub like the E-3 is a stinging slap to America's ambition for total air superiority, as these aircraft are the strategic vision that allows the coalition to detect incoming threats from hundreds of miles away. Beyond just targeting military installations, Iran's fire has extended its reach like the tentacles of an octopus across the entire region, from the port of Salalah in Oman to Kuwait International Airport, even striking desalination plants and aluminum smelters in Abu Dhabi. These strikes are not designed to capture and hold territory. They are designed to sabotage the economic infrastructure and maritime security of the entire world, driving oil prices to record highs and fracturing global supply chains. This is the maximum pain strategy in its purest form, designed to squeeze the US until it has no choice but to offer concessions. The Pentagon may boast that Iranian launch rates have dropped by 90%, but military analysts see a much more disturbing truth behind those statistics. A decrease in the volume of attacks does not signify an exhausted arsenal. Instead, the IRGC appears to be deliberately slowing the tempo to adapt, learn, and iterate. They have moved away from the spray and pray tactics of the early days toward precision harassment, integrating real-time intelligence to maximize every strike. Data shows that the Iranian hit rate has actually doubled in a very short time. They are evolving in the middle of the fire, finding the smallest cracks in the American and Israeli defensive shields. Specifically, Iran has located the Achilles heel of the Israeli air defense system by utilizing ballistic missiles equipped with cluster warheads. When these missiles reach their terminal phase, they release dozens of submunitions over a wide area, rendering Israel's low-altitude defense grids completely ineffective. The only way to stop these is to kill them in space using the Arrow 3 system. However, the Arrow 3 is an exorbitantly expensive interceptor with a very limited inventory. Forcing Israel to use multi-million-dollar space bullets to counter rainfalls of cheap submunitions is pushing their defense budget into a state of total exhaustion. In summary, after more than a month of high-intensity conflict, Iran has proven that it is not a defeated prey, but a predator that has simply changed its hunting style. The rose-colored statistics coming out of Washington are masking a reality where Tehran still possesses the power to sow global chaos and extract a blood price for every square meter of a US base. This war is no longer the military stroll that Trump's intuition promised him. It has transformed into a brutal race for survival, testing both high-end technology and the economic endurance of the world's most powerful nations.